In 2025, we have a number of strategic priorities. Um, and a lot of them would have stemmed from, uh, when I came on in 2023, sort of continuation of what we're doing. One key one is stakeholder awareness, stakeholder participation, stakeholder engagement. We want to, as much as possible, speak to all of or many more of our registrants, our participating bodies, like BIBA, don't want to call all of them, but Central Bank and so on. Those entities which we recognize that there's a symbiotic relationship between how well we function and obviously how well they're able to function. Uh, Barbados requires a whole level of investment. So that means that we are a critical cog within that wheel in getting investment into Barbados. How nimble we are, how flexible we are, while still maintaining the regulatory rigor or the supervisory rigor, allows us, to have certainty within our regulation, our regulatory and supervisory process, as well as, still allowing business to seamlessly operate and, bring investment into Barbados. So our stakeholder engagement requires us to, do more with our stakeholders, which is something that we will be doing in 2025. The other thing we want to do, and we have already started, is making our process more seamless. So when you're talking about publics, we're not only looking at external publics, we're also talking about internal publics. Letting the teams within the FSC work as just that, one team. So we're doing a lot more, we're looking at our processes, making them more straight through so that we're able to identify within the whole cog from one part A to part B, touching many different teams, that everybody understands their role within the organization, how they help in terms of making it more efficient as well. So we're not only looking at processes, we're also bringing the tools, technology to bear. So we're bringing this whole new focus on technology within the FSC. Data is also going to be very important. We want to be a data-driven entity, and so data and how we collect data and how we disseminate data is also key to what we do. Um, other areas of strategic priority include looking at that framework or that backbone that drives us, which is our legislative framework. And so one of the things that we also have started to do and we have embarked on is dealing with a review of our legislative, all the pieces of legislation that we are responsible for at the FSC. We want to come up with more principles-based, nimble regulation and legislation. Similarly, within our supervisory and regulatory departments, we are embarking on more risk-based approach, on a more risk-based principles-based approach to regulation and supervision. And so that too becomes part of our strategic priority. As a regulatory organization for the non-bank financial sector, there are a number of challenges which we have faced since we would have started back in 2011. A lot has to do with, and you would appreciate that we have multiple pieces of legislation. Unfortunately, those pieces of legislation have been fairly dated, and I would have mentioned previously that they are now being updated, they are now being made more flexible and more principles based. In the past, we tended to, when we were setting legislation, we tended a lot to be very much more prescriptive, and so that made it, much more difficult to be as flexible as possible within the new environment. Now we operate in a very fast-paced environment where, for example, there's a lot of talk about, cryptocurrency, biodiversity credits, things which previously, no one spoke about, say, 5 or even 3, 4 years ago. So now those are becoming the vogue, but the pieces of legislation under which we currently operate does not neatly allow you to do certain things. We have been able to deal with some of the things somewhat, some of the deficiencies within the legislation somewhat, by issuing guidance or guidelines, which has similar force in terms of, compelling some of our registrants to do it, to make the necessary adjustments. However, as I would have told you, we need to look at the legislation. The other thing has to do with the speed at which things change. Um, as a regulatory organization, we also need to be equally as nimble, equally as flexible. So when it comes to training, when it comes to sensitizing staff members, of the new moves, new things that are happening, we therefore need to make sure they're adequately trained. And so training then becomes a key priority that we also need to focus on, which typically, given where we have come from in the past, this whole idea of being flexible, being nimble, in some instances may seem a change in culture, a change in mindset. So this is, one of the things, people very often change becomes a little bit harder, but we will get there. One of the critical areas that I would like to focus on, and it's something that we too have as a strategic priority here at the FSC, is dealing with innovation, innovative products, innovative processes. Um, we recognize, given some of the queries, some of the feedback that we have been getting from potential registrants, for example, people are looking for new and innovative ways to do things that previously in the past we did either a certain way or we never did at all. So we think that for Barbados, innovation could be a key driver within the economy, and we want to obviously be part of it. As I would have mentioned before, strategically, the FSC sits in a good place in that if we're sufficiently nimble, if we're sufficiently engendering, trying to allow things to thrive, new business to thrive, then we would have served another one of our purposes, which is to allow companies or businesses to set up in Barbados while still maintaining the rigor of our system, but still providing that nurturing environment. So as such, there is the board also thought it necessary, given that it would have been a strategic priority. So there is an innovation committee set up by the board to focus primarily on how we are going to deal with innovation and innovative products. And so there is our thinking that we will develop an innovation hub, which would allow those nascent business, nascent products to operate in an environment that we can observe, observe how they work uh, within the system. There is a sandbox that has been set up years ago between the central bank and the FSC. It hasn't quite worked as well as we thought it would have worked, and so that too will be something that we will have to revisit, and that we are revisiting, so as to make sure that um, we properly work to allow these innovative products to survive. So I was away from the commission for about just under 10 years. And when I came back, what I realized is that while the commission, many of the processes remained, I still thought that we could be more nimble. There are many more things that we can do to make us really, the place that people want to work. And so we went about, this transformation effort. Why we want to transform at this time? I would have mentioned in some earlier discussion that the world is changing very, very rapidly. And not only for our survival, but for Barbados, we need to have investment coming into the country. And so what we would have seen, what I would have seen is coming back here, we have become a lot more self-sufficient. We now have a lot more resources that we can finally deploy those resources towards the transformative efforts. And so this is what we are doing. So in the early days, we always had, that understanding that at some point we will be, the main regulator or the regulator that people would want to work at. And so now I think we have that opportunity to really drive home that thought process that we can be the one of the best regulators to work at.
The Financial Services Commission licenses, supervises, and regulates non-bank financial institutions operating in Barbados.
My pension plan at work.
My insurance and securities.
My credit union.
We are proactive.
We monitor for compliance and we act in your best interests to prevent breaches of the Financial Services Commission Act.
The Financial Services Commission, helping to promote a fair, safe, and stable financial system. Learn more about us at fsc.gov.bb.
I am Warrick Ward, and you're watching FSC Speaks. So the FSC, we early on we recognized that stakeholder engagement is critical to our survival. As I would have mentioned before, and in fact, it's one of our strategic priorities. As I would have mentioned before, it is something that we developing more. We're working more closely with our partners on, given the symbiotic relationship we have with most of them. So some of the key agencies or key entities that we work with is obviously our line ministry, which is the Ministry of Finance. We definitely need the Ministry of Finance for survival, and you don't need to understand or I don't need to go into much detail as to how critical they are to our success. Our partner or sister regulator within the Barbadian shores, the central bank, between two of us, we work very closely together because between two of us, we maintain the confidence or financial stability within the financial sector, Barbados' financial sector. Primarily as it relates to financial stability, we produce the financial stability report every single year, and that gives the reader a sense of the work that we do, the really hard work that our teams do to make sure that we capture the stability within the financial system, an early warning indicator as to if there are any issues within the system that we can be proactive in fixing it or dealing with it. The other entities or partners that we use within or that we work with within Barbados is the BIBA. We work closely with them. We also work closely with Invest Barbados, and this is sort of what we, the partnerships we use as the conduit for investment coming into Barbados. BIBA primarily, not only the head, but also specifically as it deals with insurance, external insurance or international finance insurance business. Also in the area of securities, mutual funds, or other types of collective investment schemes. Those are quite important for not only the FSC, but also for Barbados on a whole, given their contribution to the tax base. The other entities which we work with primarily as it relates to tax areas of tax would be Barbados Revenue Authority, BRA. We also work with the Office of the Attorney General, which importantly, and the Financial Intelligence Unit, which importantly deals with AML and AML concerns. We definitely don't want to be on the black, gray, or whatever color list. We all want to be on the white list. And so we work with them, those partners, to make sure that we're all on the same page and making sure that any form of quote unquote dirty money stays out of Barbados and is not brought into our system. And then regionally, we work with our fellow regulators quite often through the regional groupings of CAPS or CARE, which are the insurance regulators. CAPS will be the pensions regulators. We also work with the securities regulators as well. And then internationally, we have, and this one might be quasi international, regional, domestic. You're talking about CARTAC, which is one of the regional technical resource bodies that's been set up by the IMF throughout the world, and we work closely with them to help provide training and any other technical assistance that the FSC might need. So they have been very critical in helping us build out some of the capacity within the FSC over the years. So IOSCO, which is the International Securities Commissions. We also have, IAIS, which is the Insurance Supervisors. And we also have ICERN, which is, looking at the credit unions. So in a nutshell, given all of the partners that we work with, and I'm sure I probably left out one or two, not saying that they're less important, but we see stakeholder engagement as extremely critical in how we do our work. And the broader public, these are key stakeholders for us as well. So we want to do much more in working with all of these partners. Yeah, so leadership is critical to any organization or any process, and I've been leading people and process for quite a long time. And what I've found key lessons is that people typically within an organization, they come first. So you need to understand what is it that drives the people? What is it that motivates people? And you also have to treat people with respect. That doesn't mean that you give them every single thing that they want, but obviously you need to provide them with what they need to work properly, and obviously incentives, and to understand what those incentives are. So you got to be always listening, trying to listen to the people. And if you catch what I'm saying, people, people, people. Humans, you got to treat them with human dignity and respect. The other thing is you have to be a good listener. I listen a lot to people. They might not think that I'm listening, but I listen and I take note. And, if it is something that requires changing, I will change it. And don't feel shame or shy or afraid to do two things. Say that I didn't get it wrong the first time. Um, I didn't get it. Sorry, I didn't get it right the first time. Um, Although you would like to think that you want to say that I didn't get it wrong, but I didn't get it right the first time, and so be man enough to make the necessary changes. So you got to understand, where the person is coming from, and try to work through that. The other thing that you also have to pay close attention to is strategy. Be very strategic in how you do things, how you appoint people, how you work on some new area, and obviously how that is supposed to come to a conclusion. So you got to be fairly meticulous in understanding where you're going, but you also need to know what it is that you require in order to get there. And as long as you're able to put those things together, so the process is in place, the tools are in place, and the right people, the right places are in place, I think you can succeed. So for any aspiring leader, any young person within the financial services industry, I would advise them to try to understand as much as possible, try to be involved with as much as possible. Don't think that any job is too low or too high for them. Try to learn as much as possible. So key to understanding how to lead is key to understanding what it is you're leading. And so you definitely need to immerse yourselves with all parts of the organization, understand all facets within the organization. And also don't feel shy, even as leader, to go and assist. If you see, for example, some of your team, they're drowning in their work, and you have the ability or you have the time to assist, then by all means go and assist. It helps to build morale, and it also helps to let people know that you are a human being, and you also treat others as human beings. And so I think, and it always comes back to the concept: treat people as people. When I eventually leave the FSC, I want people, not only people from outside, but also people inside, to remember that this was a time of a lot of transformation. This was a time for which the FSC moved from an organization that at times could be under a lot of pressure, or sometimes could come in for some flack, to one that is now seen as a place of efficiency, a place where people are working well, where you have good staff, and also one where we have been seen as a model regulator, or even a model entity within the public service. But the other thing is that when I leave, I don't want it to be about me at all. I want to make sure that it has longevity, that sort of process, and the processes that we're putting in now, and the sort of way in which we look at how things are done, that has the longevity. And so the next set of people that come after, they're able to continue to build on some of the cornerstones that not only me, but also the other team members and the other players are putting in place to develop the FSC.